The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please.
Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Hello, welcome to the show. This is Parrot TV's Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful piece by Peter Campbell Kelly. Today we have Karla Linn Merrifield, who is a 9-time Pushcart Prize nominee and National Park Artist in Residence, and she has had 900 plus poems appear in dozens of journals and anthologies. She has 14 books to her credit. Following her 2018 Psyche Scroll is the 2019 full-length book, Athabascan Fractal, Poems of the Far North from Cirque Press. She is currently at work on a poetry collection, My Body, the Guitar, inspired by the famous guitarists and their guitars. The book is slated to be published in December 2021 by Before Your Quiet Eyes publication, Holograph series. Her Godwit, Poems of Canada, received the Eisman Award for Poetry. She's a frequent contributor to the Songs of Arette's Poetry Review, an assistant editor and poetry book reviewer emerita for the Centrifugal Eye. She is a member of Just Poets, the Florida State Poetry Society, the New Mexico Poetry Society, and the Authors Guild. You can visit her former blog, Vagabond Poet Redux, at karlalinn.blogspot.com. Her tweet is available, Linn Merrifield, and you can see her photography has appeared in Outdoor, Sea Stories, The Centrifugal Eye, among many magazines and publications. In fall of 2000, High Falls Gallery in Rochester, New York, featured her bird photography in a one-woman show, Dawn of Migration and Other Audubon Dreams, and the Everglades National Park Co-Visitor Center presented a dozen of her works by the park's poets and artists in residence. She illustrated William Hyan's limited edition 2012 The Green Bookcase with 50 plus photographs. A second edition of the book was published in September 2018. Thanks for joining us today, Karla. How are you today?
Hey, I am very groovy. It's been a beautiful day in Western New York. So, and what a treat to be here. Thank you very much,
Excellent. Yeah,
Dustin.
it's great to talk with you, and we'll have an excellent conversation. I think we'll learn quite a bit from your poetry and your writing skills. And so, my first question is, where do you come up with these titles? They're so interesting. They're so intriguing in and of themselves. Just you're caught immediately. I mean, you have lithic scatter, psyche scroll, attaining canopy. Where do you come up with these titles? Do you muse on them for a while, or do they just spot like in your head? I mean, how does that happen?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I came out of, I mean, I've been writing poetry since I was 11,
Hmm.
but I spent my career in terms of as a marketing professional. So I came up through the ranks writing copy for advertising.
Hmm.
And what that did for me, besides give me a chance to keep nimble in wordsmithing, but one of the things that really drove the message home for me from those years of experiences is, you got to have a good headline.
Right.
And our titles to poems are our headlines. You can do so much um, uh, for your reader in delivering, whether it's a book title or a poem title, the title of your piece. I mean, welcome. It opens the door for the reader. So I am very, very attentive to the titles of my poems and my books, and I think that was part of the discipline that I learned through marketing. You do need that grabber headline. So it drives me nuts when I see poems. When I used to be editor at the Centrifugal Eye, I mean, I get poems that are called Untitled. And I was like, wow, no, 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 no.
Right.
Use that title to open the door, and that's your welcome mat. Okay.
Right. And then one thing I know on marketing and a little bit of what of reading I've done is another thing that is good is something that stands out from the crowd. You don't want something that's just like, poems by Dustin Pickering. That's not a good title for a book, and it's very generic. And so you want something that kind of stands out. And that's one of the first things I noticed in reviewing your work is that you had these titles that were just really poetic and they were also very captivating. So I
Thank
thought
you.
I'd ask about that. It was quite interesting. I especially like Psyche Scroll. What is that? What is that about?
Oh, Psyche Scroll was a curious book. I have a friend who is a poet. He's my mentor. I revere him. Um, William Hayen. I mean, he probably has 30 books. I don't know. He just keeps churning them out. So, and he's been instrumental in spurring a lot of my writing. And he said to me in the winter of 2017, he said, "Have you ever written a book length poem?" And I said, "No." I knew he had. I never thought about it. He said, "You need to go do that." So that very night, I started writing what became Psyche Scroll. And it's the story, it's a psychological story about an every woman who is struggling to get her id, her ego, her super ego all in line and balanced. So those three components become that's your psyche. and this is her scroll, and it keeps unfolding throughout the whole darn book. One poem,
Interesting.
with lots of breaks. But it was a challenge, and I said, okay, I can do this.
Right. It's always fun to take on something new, a fresh new idea, and take, if you're, especially if you're experienced at writing, very experienced, you want to have some sort of new project that will challenge your, I guess you could say, your breath in a way.
Yeah.
I noticed when you say superego, ego, and all, does it also stand in for other concepts in the book?
Absolutely. The ego is the main character. I mean, that is our, I mean, in the old, Freudian model, the ego, I mean, that's who, who we present ourselves, how we present ourselves to the world. And then the id is that inner world that's going on. And I have a character in the book who represents the id. So there's the main character, ego, and then there's Jojo the poet, who's the id, and then all the excuse me, the super egos are the males of Western patriarchy. So and ego's struggle is like, how do you balance all those?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get them in line? And that was her whole goal, was to find balance and to survive as a woman in a patriarchal society. And the book has kind of, blew me away in a way, because it came right before the Me Too movement. So I wrote it kind of like, I guess, feeling the gestalt of our times, and this thing poured out of me. I mean, I swear, I'm not sure I wrote it. I just put my fingers on the keyboard. And ego just started rolling along. So it's an interesting little animal.
So it's sort of a piece on of contemporary feminism.
Yes, very much so.
And as you say, I mean, inspiration in this case, I mean, you sat down, you did the work. I mean, and they say that perspiration, 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration for genius, right? So, you sat down, you did the work, and I have the same experiences a lot of times, that poems tend to sort of write themselves in a lot of ways. And you go back and you look at it, and you're like blown away by what you've written. Like, how did I write that? I don't even remember that phrase, using that phrase. I've never said this before in my entire life. That kind of stuff happens to me quite a bit in my writing. And so, do you ever find those like aha moments, or those like weird, almost like self-alienating, like, why would I put that in this book? I don't understand how that made its way in there.
I think it's part of the magic of writing poetry. I mean, sometimes we start with an intent, and we know we want to write about, I don't know, the autumn scene outside my window here in my study. The other night it hit me. I was just noodling in my journal, and that often is a gateway to writing. Sitting down and getting into a new poem. And I was just writing in my journal, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, this poem just tumbled into my head, and I was quick, get it down. I don't know. It's part of the absolute magic of poetry, that you may have intent at times, and then sometimes it just comes over you, and we can't figure it out. I love
it's the muse. Like, it's all we can say is just give it the name the muse, or whatever name we may respectively. We had one interviewee that said that she named her muse Frank, I believe. And that was funny to me. That was very charming. It's like naming the muse, giving it an official name, and kind of, crowning it with an actual being, So, how do you choose publishers, and how many rejections do you think you get on average as you go through all these publishers and submit? I mean, I have a hard time finding publishers in general for myself. I just can't find. As they're so specific sometimes. They're like, we want this kind of piece, we want it at this time. It's like, how do you go about finding a publisher that is suitable for your work?
In terms of individual poems, I subscribe to Duotrope, New Pages, Authors Publish, certainly poets and writers. So I'm always looking at what submissions are due this month, say for individual publications. I know the book, or they're calling for a specific theme. And Duotrope is brilliant at that, in that every week you get this newsletter from them and they say, here are themed calls. And I always go to those first. And I'm always, scrolling through the newsletter to see, okay, somebody's looking for, this publication is looking for poems about forests. What do I've got forest poems, so that's one way. Just using the tools that are available to us in terms of calls for submission for individual poems. And I keep tabs. There are a number of, I don't know, 40, 50 that I keep tabs on, with their deadlines. And I always want to make sure I send them something. So it's a combination of getting familiar with certain publications or ones that you really admire, and going back to them as they cycle through the year. And then the theme submissions, which are just so much fun to do. I mean, because they help you focus, and they teach you about your own opus, what you've got. And then book publishing, that's Psyche Scroll, I think, went to 41 or 2 publishers before Poetry Box Select picked it up. And that book publishing is just sheer perseverance. Finding the right, going after press after press that fits the kind of book that you're trying to hawk. But and just bingo, eventually it will happen. And I think that's that's part, and you found this, I'm sure, Dustin, that it's a perseverance game.
Right.
Just keep trying. I mean, I'm an old hand at this now, so rejections are just kind of okay. All right, and I immediately think, who's next? Who do I need to send this to next? So a combination of just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on in with journals, and then getting acquainted with all the publishers who are out there. And but those subscriptions, and most of them are free. Duotrope is, I don't know, $50 a year or something. It's keeping track of those is just such a wealth of there. I could spend most of my time doing submissions, but you got to write the poems first.
Right. Of course, the writing is the fun part. I find that submitting it, I find it tiring. I have a few publishers that that come to me and ask me for a book, and I had a book called Salt and Sorrow a few years back that did pretty well. And the publisher actually came to me and said, I want you to write this and see what happens. And he said, bring the God of the Bible out, is what he told me. And I said, oh, I'll give it a shot. It was a very interesting little book, a very flimsy little book. It was sort of, some sparse poetry. It's just a few lines per poem, but it was me trying to sort of humanize biblical text a little bit.
Ooh.
It was fun. It was a really fun project. So, how do you feel about being rejected? Is that something you just water off the bat kind of thing, or is it like, especially early in your career, did you find it tedious and I don't even want to do this anymore?
I don't like to take no for an answer. And I think at the beginning, I don't know, that seems so long ago. I had a few hits. And you hit somebody and someone wants to take a poem, and that spurs you on. That's your positive reinforcement. And I like to focus on that. The rejections, after a while, it's just like, I just learned 2 years ago, I started playing the guitar, And in order to do that, I had to spend the first like 4 months getting calluses on my fingertips of my left hand. And I think it's for writers, the submission game is very much the same. You just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and you'll get a hit, and that hit then reinforces, and your ego is boosted, and you just keep at it. I mean, there are times when I've had a few in this year that I was just like, darn it, and that's as far as it goes. Darn it! Now get those poems out somewhere else.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of it. You get rejected, and then you immediately get past that and get those poems out somewhere else. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just want to say hello to Dee Dee Champagne, who spoke and said hello to us on Facebook. Elizabeth Johnson, thank you so much for speaking. Hello. That's nice of her to speak up and watch the program. Thank you so much. So as far as the guitar, I actually play guitar myself. I taught myself. I totally understand the calluses and everything. I mean, my fingers have calluses as we speak, and it's it's a fun process, and I find that's an interesting analogy to compare rejection to developing calluses as you play guitar. That's a fun little way of putting it. You just kind of develop a little bit of a tougher skin where your power is, And so what interests you in the guitar? When did that come about? And you have a collaboration, I believe, with who is it? The collaboration you're working with right now with the guitar.
I did a series of podcasts that's on my new website. I have a new website, new blog. But I did a series of collaborations with a guitarist and who became my teacher, Paul Garthwaite, who's in Britain, who has spurred me on. But the original impetus was I was casting around to in fall of 2018. What am I going to do next? What I finished a book. I was ready to start something new. And it just happened that a friend of mine said something about, I was admiring his guitars, and he started showing me the guitar and all the pieces of it, the different, the anatomy of guitar. And I said, oh, I wonder, maybe I should start writing about guitars and guitarists. And I realized that in order for me, I'm great. I love research, and I think it adds so much to the depth of a book. And I said, well, if I'm going to write about guitarists, I better start playing this instrument and see. I mean, everybody started. I mean, Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page. They all started somewhere with that first, G chord or whatever. And how do you? And I knew that in order to write this book and be authoritative in my voice and have the respect for them in those lines, that I had to give it a shot. And I found out I just love it. I just love it.
Interesting story there. We're going to take a brief break and come back with Karla's poetry. Thanks for watching.
Keep watching the New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People who have been on our show, have participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please. The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. And we're back with Karla Linn Merrifield. She's going to read us a couple of poems of her own. So go ahead, Karla.
All right. Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks to Sanka Sen for his music. It's wonderful, that Ventures piece. That's very nice music he's got going there.
Yeah. It makes me want to get up and start dancing.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe we can dance. We can dance in our minds to a couple poems. I'm going to read. I'm going to start with one from my forthcoming book, My Body, the Guitar, and that, I mean, it's a good seg from what we were talking about. And this one, the first third of the book traces my first year's journey in learning to play the guitar, and then the second part of the book is called Local Heroes, and that's guitarists I know personally who've been instrumental in my explorations of the instrument. And then the third big chunky piece is all those guitar gods. So this is from the first part, and it's from it's dated to April 23rd, 2020. So, you know, scroll back in your mind to where you were basically 1 month into the outbreak of coronavirus and the lockdown. So here we go. It's called Etude 423, Embodiment on the Day I Changed Strings for the Second Time. I want to hold somebody. I want to hold somebody. I want to hold somebody. I want to kiss somebody. I want to kiss somebody. I want to kiss somebody. I want to breathe on somebody. I want to breathe on somebody. I want my breath on somebody. I want my sweat on somebody's hands. I want my tears on somebody's brow. I want my dew on somebody. And his on mine, but it shall not be now, no matter my wants, his, yours. So I want my fingers rippling somebody. I want my thighs cradling somebody. So my heart's wants lift now somebody, my guitar.
Interesting. There's a lot of erotic imagery, obviously, and I mean, it's almost like you're kind of like saying, in a sense, that there's a embodiment of eros and changing guitar strings.
My guitar, I mean, I now have 3 going on 4, but my Martin guitar has been my best bud through the
Mm-hmm.
COVID era. I mean, he's beautiful. He sounds beautiful. He's made of wood, so as opposed to an electric guitar, and I hold him close to me. And the longer I play, the warmer the wood becomes, and I can feel
Wow.
that. And during COVID, when you couldn't hug anybody. I mean, you couldn't basically even fist bump with somebody. I mean, we're still, kind of in that quasi zone now, but and I couldn't get over how much my guitar came to mean to me to get me through psychologically those first months of the initial lockdown. Anyway, so the poem tries to express that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Dee Dee and Elizabeth, for your comments. That's wonderful. Once said full of great longing, gorgeous poem. Dee Dee says gorgeous poem. So thank you, Dee Dee. Let's hear another one.
Okay. Here's another one from that first section of the My Body, the guitar book, the mere mortal that I am. That's the title of the first section, Mere Mortal. It's called here's a title for you, Dustin. When a 54 Fender Stratocaster becomes a fetish. Smitten thoughts. Girl, she's rapturing. Smitten thoughts about me. I got smiley halos above. I got me a smitten girl, smitten all over me, whammy bar girl, string bending me with her pickups, smitten. My smitten girl, sure to soon be amplified. For me, a night plugged into her smitten hold on me. My grasp, she do electrify. When my jizzy smitten girls upped completely, top volume, reverb within me upping, my heart's pumping. Newly smitten gal, I play you, also jazzy melodies. Smitten girl, mine, tune in.
Another one with a lot of longing and eroticism, and I can relate to the feeling of warming up a guitar. I have an acoustic Epiphone. It's a really wonderful little guitar. They're pretty nice. They
are.
They're really. It's a really good guitar. It's lasted me for several years, and as long as you take care of it, it takes care of you, kind of thing.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. It's wonderful. I love the fact that you're embodying these guitars as as almost like a companion or a lover sense, you're seducing them when you play them, and in a way, your hands are going over them, and you're learning from the movement, but you're also in a way, kind of if it was a person, you were acting the same way towards a person, and it would be kind of like playing a musical instrument with the person. It's like playing music is very much a tempestuous and erotic, I guess you could say. I mean, it's a very tempestuous and erotic thing sometimes, and getting the motion in and getting the feel of the guitar and playing it as you're playing it. It's a very beautiful thing. Have you read by any chance Wallace Stevens's The Man with the Blue Guitar?
Oh yes, I mean I need to go back to it again. I can't tell you, and friends of mine who know I've been working on this book now for almost 3 years. How many friends have sent me, do you know this poem? And there's the Wallace Stevens Blue Guitar. And he understood that physical relationship. And I don't think it happens with pianos, because that's where I started off as a kid, was playing a piano, and I sucked at it
Mm-hmm.
after 8 years. I came to realize when I picked up the guitar and started, fumbling around, that I think the difference between them, and saw a piano in your home where you're sitting, that beautiful grand piano, that a piano is out
Projected image. It's
here.
not my house. just to be
Oh, all
clarified.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like
Well,
the
your
background here.
space. Okay. So, a piano is out here. A guitar is right here up against your
Mhm.
body. And I think that made a world of difference to me musically. I mean, I thought I was broken musically, and all these many years later, I realized, no, I'm not broken musically. I just had the wrong instrument for me.
Different
So I
instruments have
understand, and I
different
think
feels.
Wallace Stevens picked up on that. I mean, he understood.
I mean, I like the way you decide, you describe the guitar as being something that's very close to you and close to your body, whereas piano is like, out here and you're doing this, you're not playing like this or, and I find the different instruments have different capacities for emotion. Like the violin and the composition at the beginning of the program, a very mournful, deep, sonorous kind of feel. And the guitar can be very chunky too. It can be very chunky and fun, or it can be, a very passionate. You can do like a Santana kind of like feel to it, a very longing and deep musicality to it, or you can just do like a very punkish kind of thing and just you do a lot of things with the guitar. Uh, that's what I love about it.
They're I think they're just marvelous instruments. So,
So, what are some of your current favorite books?
oh, oh dear. Um, wow.
And thank you, Elizabeth, for your comment. That's an excellent observation. I love that word "smitten." Really speaks to an adolescent-like desire, right?
Oh, I don't know about favorite books.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I just my new blog that came into being this past summer. I've done a couple reviews, and I'm a great fan. The one that was published this morning, I do posts every 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that was published this morning is a new novel by writer Lori A. Egan, who's from New Jersey. I mean, I've known her for years. I followed all her work. And this recent book, The Swimmer, is a psychological study about a woman who's dying of cancer, and it sounds, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it a remarkably uplifting book, in that she comes to grips with her situation and the decline, and is able to move forward at the very end of her life, in on her own terms. But Lori A. Egan, you can't put her in a cubby hole for mystery, suspense, romance. You can't categorize that author.
Mm-hmm.
She is always astonishing me. So she's always, she's always a fave, and she's got a couple more new books since The Swimmer this summer, that are coming out soon, and I can't wait. So I follow her. I don't read, and I don't read a lot of fiction, but I've become enamored. I mean, every once in a while I get into mysteries, because when things are tough, it's really nice to read a mystery, um, and because they find the bad guy.
Right.
So, it's very satisfying. And my all-time favorite is Louise Penny. She's a Canadian author, mystery writer. And I'm reading the one that she brought out last fall. I'm finally getting to it now. And she's got her new one out that I will read this winter. But I just try and read as much poetry as I can. I discovered through Facebook. I mean, how the part of the blessing of social media. A marvelous poet from Washington State, Scott Ferry, and I've read a couple of his first two books. He's got another one coming out. He's another one that's hard to keep track of because he's so prolific. But the first two of his I've read now this summer, and I'll eventually get to a review of those two. And then there's this publisher in the United Kingdom called Guts Publishing, and I will read anything they publish. The Julianne Ingalls, who's the editor publisher, started this a couple years ago, and Guts Publishing is what it says. They are doing remarkable raw, I mean, not the writing, but stories about memoirs. Okay. I'm reading one now called Fishtown that chronicles a Scottish writer's time teaching English in Japan. Whatever they do immediately gets ordered as soon as they bring it out. I'm just this niche that they've carved, and again, that's my little marketing brain going bing bing bing. But they've carved a niche that didn't exist in publishing anywhere in the world, and I admire what they're doing. And I've been lucky to excuse me, be in one of their anthologies called Sending Nudes, with the cover art and a preface to. I got to write the preface to that collection, that anthology. They're just doing, why do we Sending Nudes? What is this phenom? Why are we sexting? Well, we've been sexting since the Stone Age. Okay. Look at the cave walls. I mean, I have seen cave walls in the American Southwest with couples copulating. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's just that they've captured this particular niche of really edgy stories and true life stories, mostly memoirs. And they're now branching out into fiction. So that's going to be interesting too. So I don't know. People give me books, I put it in the pile, and eventually it gets to the top. And I have my faves, my favorite poets who I make sure I follow, whether it's William Hayen or Scott Ferry, who I mentioned. I try to keep up with a lot of people whose work I really admire. Miriam Saget, she's another one. She's a poet from Santa Fe, and I've been a fan of her since 2009. And no matter what, if she's got a new book out, it's on its way to me. So I just adore her work. So sometimes it just gets thrown my way, and do you want to write a blurb for this? Okay, I'll write a blurb for your book, and I don't have a plan. I just let serendipity bring me the books that I'm
absolutely. Yeah. So we're rounding up now. What final words would you offer to our audience and to writers in general?
Oh, final word. Actually, two words. Show up. I am sorry. I don't buy into I've got writer's block. I can't do this. I don't believe in it. You show up, you take out your journal, you open the book, you put your pen, whatever, your keyboard, whatever it is, and you start messing around. And the door opens. And I think that I have told students, poetry students who I've taught or mentored or tutored, just show up, people, please. it will happen. It will
Right.
happen. And yeah, there's junk, and it gets ditched, or you save it. I save everything. And 10 years later, you look at it and you go, oh, look at that line. Now there's the poem.
Mm-hmm.
Show up,
Absolutely.
pen on the page, the fingers on the keyboard, do it. Show up.
Absolutely. So, do you have any friends or family you'd like to give a shout out to? Any supporters you'd like to say thank you to?
Oh my God. Well, I already shouted out to Lori A. Egan, Lori Antonacci in New York City, my a dearly beloved friend in Massachusetts, Victor Safran, Bo up in Alaska, Joe Craig, who's a jazz guitarist, who's a great friend of mine, Catherine Underhill Fitzpatrick, another writer who I would not miss a single book that she's done. I think she's got 4 or 5 now. And my neighbors and Bill and Hanny and God, I could go on and on. Okay.
Right. That's usually how it goes. There's a lot of people to thank out there. Well, thanks for joining us today, Karla. It's
Thank
really
you, Dustin.
interesting, pleasant. I think we have a lot in common, especially the guitar.
I know, and I'm looking forward. I've made a note to hop over to Amazon and get the Literary Parrot. So
absolutely, thank you so much, and feel free to review it or suggest it to other people if you like it. And I would encourage you to tell other writers that are to get in touch with us as far as getting interviews on here. So we're looking for writers, always looking for new writers, new creative minds. This has been the New York Parrots Literary Corner, and I'm Dustin Pickering. We had Karla Linn Merrifield today. I hope you enjoyed our programming. If you want to donate some change to us, we have an interesting outlet called PayPal, and paypal.me/nyparrot. There it is down there. Support this program. paypal.me/nyparrot. And if you would like to be on the program as a guest, to be interviewed, if you're a creative mind, a writer, a poet, any kind of creative mind, we're looking for musicians to feature on here as well, and visual artists. You can send us your bio and a headshot and samples of your work to Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com. This is the only show the media is offering for creative minds on televised. So please be sure to remember that when you get on here, you're going to be on the show live, and we will love to have you. So please be aware of that. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please.
humanity.